Okay, so we can start. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Nexa 4th anniversary space. I'm really happy to have all of you here with us today, and today is a very special moment for Nexa. 4 years ago, the network launched with a small group of people, a very ambitious technical vision, and a belief that scalable peer to peer electronic cash could be taken much further. Since then, Nexa has grown through changing market conditions, technical challenges, major infrastructure development, new applications, conferences, ecosystem growth, and now its first halving. 4 years is a meaningful milestone, especially in an industry where projects, technologies, and entire narratives can appear and disappear very quickly. Nexa has continued building through all of it. Today, we want to take some time to look back at the journey, discuss the lessons learned, explore what is being built right now, and think about the direction Nexa could take as it enters its fifth year. Today, it's not intended to be an overly formal interview. I really want it to feel like a genuine and relaxed conversations with the people who have helped build Nexa and shape its direction. So I want to thank everybody from the team for joining us, and I want to thank everybody listening and celebrating this huge milestone for us. And also, before we begin, we also have something special planned for everybody joining today. To celebrate this anniversary space, we will be giving a special edition Nexa anniversary NFT to everybody listening. To receive it, paste your Nexa address in a comment below this space, and the NFT will be distributed by the end of the next week. All addresses posted within 24 hours will get an NFT. So please make sure that the address you post is a valid Nexa address and that you have access to the wallet. With this being said, let us begin by going back to where the journey started. So before we talk about current development or what comes next, I think it is really important to take a moment to recognize what this anniversary represents. 4 years can feel like a short period of time, but in the blockchain industry, 4 years can contain multiple market cycles, technological shifts, difficult decisions, and major changes in direction. Nexa has lived through all of that while continuing to develop. Now, looking back from the earliest days of the network to where Nexa stands today, what does this anniversary mean to you personally? And what do you think best defines the story of Nexa's first 4 years? Anybody who wants to speak first, feel free to.
I guess I could go first since there's no one else shouting. I'm Andrew Stone, the founder and lead developer of Bitcoin Unlimited, so lead developer of Nexa. So what is remarkable to me is the dedication of the group of people. We, find people and they feel like this is a important mission to bring real cryptocurrency that is usable on a daily basis to the world, and people are dedicated to delivering that. So I think this, 4-year anniversary really marks that, and it's really important for us to sort of recognize that dedication.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So when you think back to the earliest days of Nexa and the small group of people involved at the beginning, which memories or moments immediately come to your mind?
I think probably about a year into it, we suddenly started getting a lot of social media attention. And that was because we were a very profitable mining target at the time. Um, Honestly, the memory I have, though, is the team just sort of continuing to drive forward and not getting swept up in all of that ephemeral stuff, right? And understanding that this was a fun and definitely great because it gave us a lot of public exposure, but a moment that in time that was going to move forward. and everyone just sort of kept moving on. No one didn't hear, stories about core team people, right? Getting all, I don't know, leverage to the hilt and all kinds of these sort of traps that cryptocurrency has for individuals.
Does anybody else wants to add something? I know that you were there since the beginning, Andrea, as well.
Well, I have to say that um, in, in a certain way, I was very surprised by the trajectory of the project. I mean, especially in the beginning, as Andrew said, when we get some traction, as soon as we got back to CPU miners, then GPU miners being able to get values while mining Nexa, it was like being back to 2012, 2011, 2013, where mining in BTC was an individual project, something that everybody could have, you know, embarked into. Whereas right now it is more an industrial thing rather than an individual effort. And so, yeah, I'm very fond of those memories. Apart from everything else that we went through, so a new Genesis block, the freedom of adding all the things that we think were valuable back then and are valuable right now, and that we are integrating in the protocol was very refreshing, coming from a lot of constraints that held what one person could do when we were working on BTC, BCH. It was like a total different sense of freedom, and that is still going right now with all the things that we are working on. So, and also another thing that I usually un, like underestimated, which is when you are the team in charge for a coin, there are a lot of things that you have to look after that I wasn't aware of when we were one of the team working on a coin like BCH. When you are the one in charge of the project, a lot of things that before were looked after by someone else, it is something that you have to look after by yourself. So all the application that can be built on top need a lot of library tools that has to be brought about by someone, and that someone has to be you. Like, even the more mundane thing that people can think about for a cryptocurrency, like a decent explorer that sustain all the loads, all the requests, all the API, endpoints, whatever, seems like something that people take for granted, but requires a lot of effort if you want to provide that kind of service in a professional way. Anyway, this is more, less romantic and more practical observation of the last 4 years, but there is also that I want to add to all the things that I've learned during these past 4 years.
Yeah, I really agree. Everybody is doing their part, and everybody who was there with us through all those 4 years was really an astounding member of the BU. So, from all those 4 years, like, what are you personally most proud of from everything that's been built, achieved, or overcome?
This is a hard question because there are a lot of things that I'm proud of, or I mean, that that I think there are a lot of duties that you have to be responsible of when you deal with a project where you belong to the group of people that have to get the thing going on 24/7. So there is a lot of things. I mean, the professionality, the level of professionalism that we put into the project to keep it running, to keep it producing new features, to integrate new things in the protocol, to produce applications that are useful to users like Wally Wallet or Autoflow or API servers or a pool node that is able to sustain thousands and thousands of transactions per second. Those are things that I'm proud of, that we were able to achieve and we are still achieving right now, because it is a moving target. We are going to have a lot of things that are into that that we are working right now, and it will be that and that will be available to the general public soon, hopefully, that are, you know, Tailstorm, Blitz. There are other projects that are very fruitful, in my opinion. And even though they are not generally available to the general public, I'm already proud of them, even though they are not, something that we published already. But I am already I'm already feeling the effects that those will have on the general public.
Thank you for that. Do you want to reflect on that, Andrew, as well?
Yeah, I think that we, like other cryptocurrency projects, have defined their task as like a subset of really the whole task. In this, and perhaps they weren't even seeing the whole task. And a very common example would be the cryptocurrency that produces a full node, and then they think they're done, right? Um, and I'm proud that we sort of reconceived of the task as a um, as the whole task, which is from the user interface all the way to the full node and even into the miners, right? So we've been, you know, encouraging or delivering on all of those levels, and realizing that it's actually the wallet that is in some ways the center of the ecosystem, not the full node. The full node is a workhorse. Um, and I think that also, so even though we repositioned ourselves in such a way, um, I do feel like, and that was very rewarding. I do feel like that was also one of the more difficult areas, since our expertise was more focused on full node. And as Andrea was saying, we had to reach out and do explorers, blockchain databases, wallets. And then also, we didn't have the help in the last 4 years that not other projects in the last 4 years, but prior to that, I think other cryptocurrency projects had a lot more sort of random people jumping in to help, because cryptocurrency was like younger and newer, and it was easier. Like if you made some small thing like feed my goldfish, it could go viral, right? But we're at a more mature industry now, and so the bar is higher set for projects to succeed. And so we didn't get like the community members, with a few notable exceptions, of course, jumping on like happened in the early days of Bitcoin or Ethereum. So we were kind of positioned to do it all ourselves, but we really have been having to do it all ourselves to produce all of these elements. So I think that was, you know, both rewarding and also made things much more difficult.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I think that all of these answers give us a very meaningful starting point.
I
So I
think that's
think that,
also though why we, sorry to interrupt. I think that's also though why it's a little bit of why our longevity, like we've had this longevity, right? And our project is still going strong because other projects that just produce like a new blockchain, you know, there's no, perhaps there it has an interesting algorithm for mining or whatever, and then a year of zero traffic and no wallets and whatever, no interest, and the price just crashes out, right? And of course, our price has gone down as well, but it's more like, got to be blunt at this point, right? It's more like mining profitability caused it to rise egregiously, right? And now we're going back to where, you know, we started, right? We kind of should have been.
Yeah,
So I'm
I
not really
think
that
it's
worried about it, right?
yeah, I don't think nobody from us is really worried because this is a natural
Yeah.
process and we are all aware of it. And of course, everybody needs to understand that Nexa is a long-term project and that we are all heavily invested in it. So we are not planning to give up on it anytime soon. So this is perfectly normal.
Yeah, and those projects that created one part of the larger ecosystem and they thought that that was the whole thing have come to an ugly end because there's no one to do the missing part and it's never going to get done and people realize that.
And we are witnessing those events happening lately more and more with even like projects that are really, really established. And
Yes.
uh, yeah, so I think that we can also move on now. So every long-term project has certain moments that become more important with time. Some are public milestones that everybody remembers. Other happens quietly behind the scenes when a technical problem is solved, a difficult decision is made, or the team chooses one direction over another. And these moments often shape the future of the project more than people realize at the time. Looking back over Nexa's first 4 years, which moments do you believe had the greatest influence on shaping Nexa into the project it is today? Whoever wants to speak on this, please feel free.
I guess I can begin, Andrea.
Okay.
So I think we've always had this focus, right? And so I don't think we've changed our directions significantly. If anything, our experiences at shows and things conferences has reinforced our direction. Um, I think that perhaps the first hard fork was interesting because we've basically added so many features that we still haven't even really like used them, right? They're active on the network, but we haven't written code for certain features like the Merkle calculation, which will allow us to put databases on Nexa, and read-only inputs, which makes certain operations a lot more efficient. We've just had so much to do. Um, we haven't really had time to write the library code to use these features. Um, but it's interesting because it shows our ability to really drive um, interesting features into the blockchain when we want them. So I felt like that sort of strengthened my conviction that this was the right choice to create Nexa and not stick with, for example, Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah. Oh, I, I agree that, yeah, with everything that Andy said. And also, I would add that even for certain kind of features that we inherited from BCH, for example, the double spend proof, even for in those cases, uh, we, we are so, our plates are so full that we are not even able to leverage features that have been developed before and we inherited from other projects. Like, for example, double spend proof, that would be a super useful project for any point of sale that will like give alerts about possible double spend attempt, and and also for any any other features that Andrew mentioned, like even even when it comes to also other feature of the full node. For example, we have graphene that we developed when we were in BCH, and we are doing right now, but we are not actually leveraging that before, because there's not enough, traffic on the network. But it is a statement that we are ready for, you know the goal that we have in mind, which is make people able to transact with each other peer to peer without any third party intervention, and be an electronic cash system for the world. So just want to add those, but I fully agree with what Andrew said before.
Yeah, I also want to reflect on that and ask, like, was there a difficult technical or strategic decision that significantly influenced Nexa future, even if its importance wasn't obvious to the community at the time?
I don't know. I think that Andrew is more, you know, a, 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 a a proper fit for this answer, because he was the
I'm,
one that has the vision for the project itself.
I, yeah, I mean, we haven't really, that would imply a change in our direction, and we haven't changed our direction. So the short answer is no. But to sort of broaden that question a little bit, I would say, the group tokenization is a huge indication of that with respect to how Nexa went off on a different direction compared to Bitcoin Cash, who subsequently chased us and issued tokens, right? But I remember distinctly, leading up to the launch of Nexa, all of this stuff, this, miasma about how NFTs are all just, um, you know, like worthless pictures and things like that, which, I mean, I don't think the NFT market is doing all that well, but that was never the point, right? Uh, Making a single image as, an NFT was one tiny use for tokens and group tokens. And of course, now the massive necessity of tokens on blockchains has become completely obvious, probably to everybody involved in cryptocurrencies, especially since some of the stablecoins are some of the largest traded entities. And it really, for people who don't want to deal with currency volatility, a stablecoin gives them access to foreign currencies, more stable foreign currencies, in ways that they previously may not have had access to that. And that's all built on tokenization. So it honestly just boggles my mind that I even, thinking back, that I even had to have these arguments. And of course, you know, the tokenization was probably the number one feature that caused us to fork out of Bitcoin Cash, because um, it was like the biggest feature, right? There was a ton of stuff, right? Political stuff. Um, but in terms of technical features, that's probably the one, and it has shown to be extremely important, and even to the point where Bitcoin has some awful token system to try and chase Ethereum's coattails. So I feel like that started the direction.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that those answers are really an important reminders that some coins are shaped by the long series of discussions or decisions, and some are more difficult than ones that are not. And I think that we can move on from this and to another topic, which is basically that Once the network is alive, the team has to maintain consensus software, respond to unexpected situations, test improvement carefully, and make decisions that can affect miners, developers, user, and the wider ecosystem. 4 years of that experience must create a very different perspective from one the team had before the launch. So my question here is that after responding to real-world challenges and continuously expanding Nexus capabilities, what are the most important lessons the project has taught you?
Well, that this work is a 24/7 kind of employment. like, like, yeah, it not it's not strictly a 24/7 employment, but almost, because we are a group of people, so we can share the burden of it. But if you are the one that are in charge of the thing, like I said before, you have the responsibility to keep the thing going. We had multiple, especially in the beginning. We have we went through a really steep curve, learning curve, that was related not to how to develop a full node, but about how to handle, deal with miners that before had multiple reference client, and reference team that help them to keep the thing running. Even exchanges. There are a lot of things that I would never anticipate it. If people asked me what would be the most challenging task that you are going to have in the next 6 months, 1 year, back in 2022, in June 2022, we could go on and on for the most stupid things that I could never have anticipated is um, that people will heavily use the wallet that comes with the full node, especially exchanges and stuff. And there are people that mine with pools and have their rewards address that are always the same, and that address have tons of UTXO after years of mining. And when people try to withdraw from an exchange because they mine to an address of an exchange, that exchange has like thousands and thousands of UTXO. So when it when it was time to withdraw, the wallet of the full node that was never meant to deal with uh, this kind of usage was not able to uh, make that transaction because it required a lot of inputs and stuff like that. And so we went through multiple revision and having auto consolidation of wallets in such a way that even if you use always the same address in background, the wallet in the full node was able to consolidate in addresses with less UTXO that let you being able to withdraw uh, from exchanges without problem. This is one of the examples that comes to mind, but there were plenty of them. In the beginning, it was a very uh, weird set of unknown problems that I was very surprised of having to face. I would have never expected to face those kind of problems in the beginning. That it is more like all related to 24/7 kind of operation that has to have a very high uh, or very low downtime, if ever.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in right there and observe and celebrate the fact that Nexa has had 100% uptime
Yeah,
over four
indeed.
years. And so that is an accomplishment that all blockchains were supposed to have, but a lot of blockchains are not written with the level of quality that the originals were, and with the level of dedication. So Nexa has sort of distinguished itself in that regard. And yes, we did have some sort of fun bugs, or maybe surprise problems that aren't quite bugs that hit some of our more extreme users. And Andrea was talking about one of them, which was basically miners would receive tiny little payouts, right? And so then when they would go to have try and consolidate thousands of tiny little payouts into one big payment, the wallet would simply say, "Nope, sorry, can't do that." So, and yes, you if you typed in a small enough number to consolidate just a couple of those and sort of manually kept, sending payments that were slightly bigger to yourself, you could manually consolidate these payments. But obviously, we wanted to automate that for the user. So we created this automatic wallet consolidation. And so, yeah, that was a weird effect of, how mining was being done and the sudden interest in mining Nexa.
Yeah, more than bugs, they were weird use cases, or at least use cases
Yes.
that we didn't anticipate.
Yep.
I think it's fair to say that we have like people working 24/7 on Nexa, and that's probably the reason why there hasn't been any like real issues because all of our all of us are in different time zones, and they're like all every time I wake up I see all the commits and merges from all different developers that are working on Nexa. So I think it's pretty fair to say that the work on Nexa is 24/7, like all the days in the year, because there are no holidays and barely any vacations for us, because every time I even I see somebody is not online, I see them merging and working on GitLab. One
Yeah, definitely. And also, of course, it validates the decentralized architecture, right, that we've inherited from Satoshi and a lot of other blockchains in their attempts to scale numbers of transactions and so forth have basically thrown out, right? But we haven't. So, unless there's a bug that hits all of our full nodes, uh, we have this tremendous reliability due to the redundancy.
Indeed, and also, I think that even though there are always people online working on Nexa, the fact that we have 100% uptime when it comes to our blockchain is a testimony of the quality of the work that has been done during those years, even before Nexa, because the code base that we are using right now comes from an heritage of almost 11 years, I guess, because we started BU in 2015. And since when we started Nexa, like Andrew said, we didn't have any downtime. And depending from the frequency of the commits, merge request, got merged and stuff. If you merge low quality code, it doesn't matter how frequently you're doing it, you will have a low quality product. But in our case, the fact that we are up and running continuously for 4 years straight means that all those matches that you see uh, are not junk and are good, you know, good work being done by the developer.
Yeah, I agree totally. I don't think that a lot of people is actually aware of that. And while we are at that, I want to reflect back on and ask one more question. If you could return to the period before Nextel launched, what advice would you give yourselves based on what you know today?
Mm, it's a good question. I think that Angie knew that already. I mean, I was more naive, but he was very like aware of the responsibility that we would have to the responsibility that we have in stewarding in brought about a new project, a new coin. But if if I had that time machine sort of power, I would say to myself that nothing in particular, but I will I will try to say to myself that it will be a journey that could be daunting at time but very rewarding. Like I don't feel that we were not up to the task. On the contrary, I think that that we had made a very good job. So I don't have particular advices to give to my past self, but I would, have a sort of encouragement to use when hard times come, and so that I would be more energetic in solving those problems, and then being, more positive. But all in all, this is what I would say. Nothing in particular at the technical level, more like a philosophical approach to the day-to-day work of maintaining a blockchain that has to be on, like we said, 24/7.
Thank you, Andrea. What would be your advice to yourself, Andrew?
I think I would have said, hey, like, um, nobody's going to care in the next 4 years about how technically close you are to Bitcoin in like the actual nitty gritties, not in the philosophy of sound money and stuff like that, right? These fundamental things. But I would have told myself to make some larger changes to like how the scripting works and so forth. Get those crammed in early. That way they don't have to be retroactively put in later. To some degree, I was a little bit, reluctant to do some of those, thinking, oh, we should skip, stick with the way that Bitcoin works. To some degree, it's because of the narrative of, the Bitcoin that Satoshi wanted to build, right? That both Bitcoin Cash and Nexa have kind of been inspired by. But at the same time, you got to trade that off with, you know, the excellent functionality. For example, to give a specific example, even at and before the Genesis block, some of my big, blockchain unrelated work with embedded systems had given me exposure to RISC-V, which is uh, it's a CPU architecture that is completely free, and there are emulators out there. I think I would have loved to have just put RISC-V in um, as our script evaluation language, and it would have saved us a huge amount of time in the creation of compilers and debuggers for Satoshi's language.
Thank you guys for those reflections. I believe that some ideas become stronger through experience, while others need to evolve as new information becomes available. So we're moving on, and I think that the blockchain has changed dramatically since Nexa is launched. Technologies, market trends, and entire narratives have appeared and disappeared. Yet Nexus continued working towards the same long-term goal. Why has maintaining the focus been so important, and what has allowed the team to keep building during quieter and more difficult periods?
Well, like Andrew said, I don't think we have ever changed since we get together to write to 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 get an alternative implementation to run the Bitcoin protocol. We were like very focused and very coherent to our goal, which was to provide an electronic peer-to-peer cash system for the world. Back then, we thought that this was a shared goal, We learned along the way that this was not the case. But I mean, this is my this goal that I have in mind, which is the one that I've just described, is the my main reference to to help me go through all you know difficult period that one could have. Every time that I have, you know, I don't even say doubts, but I mean that you are wondering if you're doing the right thing, and I'm going back to the basic, which is the you know let people transact with each other without third parties, permission, which is, I mean, it is the basis of any human rights if you think about it. Without the possibility of having, economic transaction, you can have all the rights that you want to, but if you can pay a lawyer, even though you have a lot of rights when it comes to, uh, a real judgment by the rule of law, doesn't matter much, if you can't have a proper, you know lawyer that helps you. And this comes with all, and this this list can go on and on, so yes, having a clear idea since the beginning is one thing that helps people develop, me in the first place, go through all the adversity, all the, things that usually happen to crypto developers on a daily basis.
Do you want to reflect on that, Andrew?
Yeah, I think that we haven't really been paying attention to these narratives and market trends. I've had a vision and a narrative for example, Wally Wallet, and that is that the phone is evolving to be like your intermediary and even your avatar into the digital realm, which is becoming more and more important. So it should act on your behalf. But and that's the only secure way to do things. But in this current world, so many things are painful and trash and insecure, like typing your password into an independent machine, right? Like, oh, I'm just going to go up to this ATM or, get money to pay for my groceries. I'm going to type my password into this, official looking box that someone stuck near the cash register. It could steal your password instantly, right? So we follow all of these horrible assumptions and we type in all of these numbers, credit card numbers, and um, when is the credit card expire number for some unknown reason, and then also the super secret number on a credit card, which is printed on the back, right? And then they're going to have, I don't know, another number printed on the corner or peel off number or something, because that's not going to work for long, right? And so blockchains really did uh, for ownership, and this is why, of course, tokens are so important, and NFTs, and for money, and for identity, and for the delegation of identity and monetary authority, and the delegation of powers that could be sort of held by tokens. All these things, we could make people's lives so much easier. And as our technology becomes more and more complex and we interface with it so much more, it's really important that the individual both hang on to control of those technologies and of their own identity, and also have very simple ways to, you know, make things happen. So, we're just beginning in this world of single sign-on, where people are going to lose their entire lives because they get locked out of their single sign-on account, right? And it's on the cloud. So let's just wait for the first time a cloud database gets compromised. And so millions of single sign-ons are compromised, right? So these sort of things are coming, and we do have answers to these. Of course, we're very small, but it's also simultaneously, it's very interesting to me to discover and write about and implement answers to these problems in the hopes that people will notice. So
Uh,
that's why I think we kind of has stuck with what we're doing, right? It's because I really think we're trying to solve these important problems.
yep, I totally agree. Even though some of the things that we are doing is not exactly visible, I think on the long-term engineering that we are working will be very, very important in the future, because I've seen some of the code that you guys wrote, like even like 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, that's like really now becoming really, really useful. So I think that your forward thinking is something that will push Nexa to become one of the most important cryptos in the world. I really believe in that vision, like 100%.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we have one more surprise. So the first surprise for our community was the limited edition NFT. So if you haven't done it already, please type your Nexa address into the comments so you can get your NFT till the end of the week. It will be valid for 24 hours. But now I want to present something else. We've been getting the same questions that are coming up in the community, like when is the next halving, how much Nexa already exists today, what will be the block reward in 2030 or 2050. And most of the time the answers lived in scattered places. Some are in the white papers, some are elsewhere. So Sigpig decided to sit down and answer them properly. He worked out the protocol's own rules, block by block, halving by halving, calculating the block height, the reward, the supply emitted, and the inflation rate for every era from Genesis all the way to the emission, to the end of emission in 2138. The result was a single meticulous document that maps Nexa's entire monetary policy onto one timeline. That document is what made everything that came next possible. So we took it as a source of truth and built the website emission.nexa.org on top of it, which is a live interactive home for Nexa's monetary story. So right now you can watch the countdown to the next halving in real time, drag a timeline from 2022 all the way to 2138 and pick any date in between to see exactly what the network looked like that day. The numbers aren't prediction, they are scheduled. The protocol has been quietly running since the Fairland launch 4 years ago. We also wanted to cite to feel like Nexa, not to just describe it. So every block hash is rendered as one of a kind sacred geometry mandala. So the chain becomes a gallery that updates roughly every 2 minutes. Also, every block becomes a chord and every era a different instrument. So you can compose a melody from real Nexa block hashes and listen to the network play itself. We are also launching this site at a meaningful moment. The first halving just happened. We have crossed the 50% emitted mark. The rate of new Nexa entering the world has just been cut in half, and the next 4 years of scarcity are already written into the code. So I think that somebody from our team will write the website so you can also check it out. And now we're moving on to the one of the most interesting topics that we already receive like questions every day. So previously we discussed how Tailstorm combines ideas from Bobtail and Storm to reduce block time variance, into distribute rewards more fairly, and give transactions increasing levels of confidence before a full block is produced. As the work continues, moving from research and design towards implementation, what has the team learned, what progress has been made, and why is Tailstorm becoming such an important part of Nexa's future?
Should I take that one?
Please do.
Sure.
Great. So I've been banging on Tailstorm a lot after an initial implementation by Peter Schipper. And definitely one thing you guys should know is you can, like every day I pop it up, create, a bunch of full nodes. I think, up to 6 on one machine typically works. And then run a bunch of Tailstorm blocks and create like thousands of blocks. So, from a research perspective, it works, yay. And we can, based on recent changes that I made, we can change the block, like both what we call the summary blocks, and those are what you think of today as the blocks, right? And then the sub blocks, these are the Tailstorm blocks in the DAG. We can change the rate that they're produced. And with recent changes, I've set it up so that you can kind of dial in anything you want. And of course, the difficulty adjustment algorithm dials you right in. So we run numbers from two sub blocks all the way up to 120. So that would be basically, one every 45 seconds sub blocks up all the way up to one per second. And right now, and the purpose of being able to do that is to shake out weird and crazy stuff. If you just right now, we're kind of enjoying as a sort of initial, possibly to be changed in a future hard fork, but an initial sort of foot in the sand idea of course, the same 120-second summary blocks, but then 40 Tailstorm blocks per summary block. So that would be about a block every 3 seconds. And when you run that, the network is boring, which is exactly what we want. And so what I've been doing is knocking it down to say 40 sub blocks with a summary block of every 30 seconds. So now I'm building sub blocks, in less than a second. And that is when we start getting really interesting DAGs and stuff starts to break. And so this is why we haven't, done the hard fork yet, right? Got to do this engineering. But a tremendous amount of progress has been made. And if you just pop up Tailstorm with the basic configuration right now, you probably won't even see a bug. We're deeply into the stability portion of Tailstorm development. Unfortunately, we are behind schedule, but you don't rush the development of consensus critical blockchain code, or you're going to get a outage. And having faster blocks is going to be a great feature, but let's be realistic, it's not needed today. And having an outage though would be a black mark on Nexa. So it's better to make sure that this code is really strong. As an example of something that I ran into just a week ago, it turns out there's like a little bit of a mining trick that you could do in the current code, and that is you could create a subblock, which is the same subblock, but give a different proof of work solution. So you're still having to do the same amount of proof of work, but you could kind of cheat in a similar way that miners used to do on Bitcoin. They used to do they used to create empty blocks before validating the previous block. And in the same sort of cheaty way, you could skip making unique and individual subblocks, pushing the blockchain forward, and you could create new solutions on the same subblock. So I'm doing work just this week, basically, to fix that and require that miners always produce a unique subblock as part of their the subblock set, not just a unique solution to any subblock.
Thank you for that answer. I think that a lot of community has been waiting to hear it directly from you. So I really appreciate you being here and answering those questions. I also have one more question about the Tailstorm. When Tailstorm achieves its full potential, how could it change the experience of using Nexa for payments, applications, mining, and services that require fast and dependable transaction confidence?
Yeah, well, I'll say, first of all, um, that let's go back to Bitcoin for a moment. And you say, oh, giving getting money in 10 minutes is not so bad, right? Because um, all I have to do is go to a coffee shop and they'll give me cash. This is the old idea of, actually trading Bitcoin or whatever, in person. They'll give me cash and we'll just get a coffee, and in 10 minutes it'll be confirmed, right? Well, that's the average time of confirmation. And in fact, if 5 minutes pass, it's a common idea to think, well, it'll be about another 5 minutes because 10 minutes on average, right? But no, at any moment, because mining is progress free, on average, it's going to take 10 minutes. So if you've waited 10 minutes, it's going to take on average another 10 minutes before finding a block. So we had the same issue with Nexa, except that it's 2 minute block times, right? Which is a lot better, honestly. But still, that 2 minutes could easily. So in Bitcoin, 10 minutes could easily stretch out to an hour, right? And then incredibly rarely, even like 2 hours. In Nexa, 2 minutes could easily stretch out to be 10 minutes, right? Um, but with Tailstorm, the sub blocks, it's like there's like this law of averages, right? If you take a random event and you average it 40 times, then the likelihood of a deviation from that average is much lower. So the first thing to observe is the summary blocks are going to come every 2 minutes approximately, like much tighter, and that's both good. It's good for two reasons. One is um, to some degree, if a block comes in a few seconds, it's almost like, oh, that was kind of a waste because not enough transactions like piled up to be worth the block, right? And then, of course, on the other side, it's like, oh man, I've waited 5 or 10 minutes and no block has arrived. This is a pain in the butt. So when the block time is between 10 seconds and I'm sorry, 1 minute 10 seconds and 1 minute or 2 minutes 10 seconds, I'm sorry, and 1 minute 50 seconds, then you feel like, okay, well, this is a lot more reliable. And then the second thing, of course, is the sub blocks, right? So you'll be able to say, oh my gosh, like within a few, like 3 seconds, miners have already um, started mining my transaction. And what's interesting about Tailstorm compared to other competitors is in Tailstorm, miners can't really lie about whether they're mining the block or not, your transaction or not, right? Because they are putting proof of work behind their claim that they're mining your transaction. Whereas with other techniques that use network or just uh, claiming statements, they typically rely on some form of subsequent punishment, which is not as well investigated perhaps as the idea of proof of work. So I feel like for many in like present operations, it's just going to be that 3 or 6 seconds before the first couple of subblocks come in, and you're going to think, oh, well, the majority of the network is clearly mining my transaction. I'm good, right? Especially if you kind of know the person, or if it's like a, um, oh, here's your coffee. Oh, some weird thing happened to the person at the table. Can you retry the transaction? Like once in a blue moon, right? So I really think that for most of these, real daily use things that we're really trying to actually make Nexus succeed at, the subblocks are going to be sufficient. At the same time, we're able to just completely forget about the subblocks after, uh, they're deep, a few blocks deep in the blockchain. So unlike some of these other technologies, the subblocks have a very minimal additional impact on the size of the blockchain. It's just it's actually, the subblocks are completely forgotten about, but the proof that the subblock existed is, a few more bytes that has to be in the summary block, which is the current blockchain. So I don't know, I think I maybe rambled a little bit, but from the perspective of using Nexa, as like a presence or daily type cryptocurrency, the transaction speed will be incredibly fast to the point of it being on par with some of these more centralized blockchains that aren't really blockchains, right?
Thank you for that really comprehensive answer. I think it's going to be really interesting for a lot of our listeners to understand that. I wanted to ask one more question about the Tailstorm. I think that this will also be very, very interesting. So, what are the most difficult remaining challenges involved in turning Tailstorm from a strong theoretical design into something reliable enough for a live blockchain network?
I'm not sure if we're even at the point where there are remaining challenges. The last thing that I really need to do is create a client that produces a bunch of bad transactions, double spends, illegal transactions, just trash. And I need to throw all of these terrible transactions at the Tailstorm, at an isolated Tailstorm network, and see what happens. And I imagine we'll shake some stuff out. But in terms of like, there's like a challenge, like the Lightning Network, they're like, oh, there's a challenge, which is that you know, um, we've never solved the dynamic routing problem. There's no challenges like that are left.
Thank you for answering that question. I really love how we're always thinking about everything and not leaving anything to not leaving anything to the actual not being done. So just put it that way. I think it's really Tailstorm is changing how the network itself could operate. At the same time, we should move to our next topic, which is the artificial intelligence. So it's becoming one of the most important technological developments of our time. It's already changing how people write software, research difficult problems, test ideas, create content, and turn early concepts into working products. For blockchain ecosystems, this could be especially significant because the technical barrier to building useful application has already been very high. My main question here is what is the broader vision behind Nexa AI and how could AI transform the experience of creating, understanding, and using application within the Nexa ecosystem?
Yeah. So, you know, Sasha, you, David, and I got together in the Miami conference, and we really tackled this problem. And I presented this idea, which is basically that the dev kit is probably dead. Let's be honest and just say it that way, right? Uh, no one's going to use like a website, tutorial to get you into a product, a development cycle anymore, right? What they want to do is go to an AI and basically type a couple lines at it and have it produce the basic uh, bones of an application. Even if you're like an expert developer, right? You might as well have AI get you started and then take over from it later. And then obviously this helps us for people who aren't strong developers or more product people and they just want to create a prototype, they could be 100% AI. So we're basically retooling our you know dev kit and focusing on people using AI to rapidly create applications using Nexa, and we're hoping that we might, I don't know, steal a march on other blockchains in this sense, which is to just be able to type into Claude, create an I have an idea, create my idea, and accept money using my idea, right? And if you did that and you said, and accept Nexa using my idea, we just want it to magically work. And so we hope in that sense we might encourage more people to use Nexa as sort of like their first way of accepting money, because it might be so easy to do that compared to other means of accepting payment. And obviously, fiat is in credit cards is your number one, but you can't just type that into AI and make that work, because you have to sign up to be a credit, you have to get permission to accept credit cards because of all the scammers out there. So there's no way you're ever going to be able to just type that into AI and have it magically work. Because if you did, all kinds of scammers would use that to create fraudulent credit card transactions.
Yeah. Do you want to say something about it, David? And we shouldn't forget Daniel. He was there also with us, and
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I didn't know
yeah,
if he was on the call. Oh, he is on the call.
he's
Hi,
actually on a
Daniel.
call. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'll say a little something. Yeah, so as Andrew mentioned, we realize that AI is going to be an important component for helping to onboard people, developers who want to explore their ideas for ecosystem applications, and yeah, a really easy way to do that would be to um, have a basic foundation to start from. We have a starter application that's Kotlin multi-platform that we're retooling right now to give basic blockchain connectivity, wallet connectivity, the ability to easily send transactions between platform and external wallet. And we are also developing some AI agent specific tools like skills to be able to make that process easier for somebody who is maybe a little bit intimidated with staring at a large code base and figuring out how it all works. So shortly, we should be putting out some. I'm going to work on putting out some content for people who want to explore building an application with the assistance of AI on the Nexa blockchain, and yeah, hopefully that will get a lot of engagement from our community members, and we're excited to get that going.
Yeah, I know that people right now maybe don't realize, but I believe that AI is the future. And perhaps it wasn't this smart like a year ago, but right now it's getting more and more powerful. And not using AI in any of the stuff that you are working on is a pure mistake. So I really love the fact that we all embrace that truth, and we are like pushing really hard, and we'll be able to show our community that Nexa is on board with that, and being able to connect anything that you are building with AI with an actual crypto that is alive, and you'll be able to get the payment sorted with Nexa. It's really amazing. So
And
I know that a lot of people. Yep.
I was going to say one more word of caution just to throw out there. You know, it really is groundbreaking, the abilities that AI has, and it will be awesome once we have uh, good AI tooling to help guide the agents to do things correctly within the Nexa code base. But just one thing that I would caution some of our users on who may go that route. You know, these are financial transactions, financial applications that are being built. So it's always good to, um, utilize our testnet infrastructure. Be very careful uh, with code that is created on what I refer to as like the money path, the transactions, smart contracts, things like that. It's always better to have a human reviewer or a human developer, but AI is a way that if you're not familiar with how to code those things yourself, um, AI could help drive you in the correct direction, and then maybe you go back and you review those critical code paths on your own. But either way, it will be exciting to see that community members can easily create projects on our blockchain, and just add to our ecosystem.
And we actually have an advantage there, which is the lack of the blind signing problem, which you guys can, if you know what that is, you can look it up. It's an issue in Ethereum. But ultimately, the idea is that, okay, if AI screws up an application horribly, it's going to show up in the person's wallet, the transaction, and Wally Wallet is going to say, do you really want to, transmit 6 billion Nexa, not maybe 6 million, right, to this site? And you're going to click no, right? And so, there is this final non-AI code ability of the person actually making the payment to say no. Whereas in the blind signing problem in Ethereum, you kind of just sort of authorize the the website to run this opaque transaction on your behalf, right? And you kind of hope that it does what it's supposed to do because you trust the website. So we have that tremendous advantage. And I also wanted to mention that there was an interesting tweet like a week ago by the CEO of Microsoft who said something, who suggested a AI strategy similar to what we had already picked, which was, hey, you can leverage your internal expertise and push it out so other people can use it using AI. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here, right? We're creating these tools and training AI on how we create applications, while at the same time we're creating some apps. And then we're going to present those tools out so other people can take advantage of them, of our expertise.
I think we're having some really exciting times coming with and I love how everybody is really open to this. And I think that this is going to put us on a spot where very few cryptos are actually able to compete with us. And even right now, we've seen the agentic like browsing is probably much bigger than the actual human browsing. So right now, agents need the money to basically use all sorts of services. And in my own personal opinion, I think that Nexa is a perfect coin for that, because our transactions are instantaneous. They are very, very cheap, and we have a lot of basically Nexa that they can use for their own transactions. So whether that's gonna be something possible, I'm really not sure, but I really hope that's gonna be something that we are able to do.
Yeah, we already have like the core of that protocol in TDPP, which allows you to put
Yep.
guardrails on a trusted agent, like not even an AI agent, right? If you like take Wally and you register with a service, you say, okay, well, I'm going to trust this service to deduct no more than $10 a day from my account, right? So you can easily think of replacing that, I don't know, video rental service with an AI, and it can spend no more than $5 a day from your Wally account without it, Wally Wallet popping up a dialog box saying, do you really want to authorize the AI to spend $20? And then you just click yes or no, right?
Yeah, I think that's really going to be life changing. We just
Yeah, I
need
mean, it
to.
certainly is a much safer model than just handing the AI the keys to your wallet.
Yeah, especially because people don't know what they're doing, and that's gonna be really useful. And it's really even that option is quite visionary if you look like in the past and what's gonna happen in the future. So I think that a lot of decisions that were made in the past, I don't know how many years ago, are really becoming super important in times like these. So yeah, AI is coming to next. So that's really exciting. So now we move on. When people follow a project, attention naturally gathers around the biggest announcements and the most recognizable names. In Nexa's case, that often means Tailstorm, Blitz, mining decentralization, post-quantum security, wrapped BTC, right now Nexa AI. However, some of the most important work may be happening quietly in libraries, infrastructure, testing environments, research, wallet improvements, or smaller applications. My main question here is what is something currently being built, researched, or improved within Nexa that deserves much more attention than it receives today?
So I can throw out two. One is a feature that recently came across my desk that people within Bitcoin Unlimited writing apps wanted, Daniel in particular. He wanted a way to send um, send money to people without using the same address, right? And so he hit up on the idea of using the HD Wallets XPub, where you send a public key that you can derive additional wallet addresses from. Um, and so that is a small enough feature that it's not gaining that much excitement, but at the same time, um, we're just going to crank that thing out. And then um, another similar sort of and I just recently, like on Friday, created a library that has the feature in, so now applications can use it. And then we have a similar feature waiting on the hard fork. And what it does is it allows you to sign a range of inputs and outputs in a transaction, but then it allows other entities to move where those inputs and outputs actually land in transaction in that, the array, which is the inputs and outputs in the transaction. And there isn't another, as far as I know, blockchain that lets you sort of do this mobility of outputs after signing. But what makes that really interesting is you can take two transactions and you can combine them. And previously, you wouldn't be able to combine them for the prosaic reason that, output 0 is different, right? But now you could move one of the transactions output 0 to output number 5, right? So then all of a sudden these two transactions can combine. And we're going to be using that in the DEX and in a few other ways to uh, facilitate these peer-to-peer partial transaction interactions.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Does anything comes to your mind, Andrea?
Sorry, I was muted. Uh, Nothing in particular. Um, I think that everything has been said so far is already like very, mm, I mean, very exciting for me. So maybe there are other things, but off the top of my head, nothing more.
Okay, thank you, and I really appreciate that. So now we move on. I think that during Nexa's first 4 years, a significant amount of work has gone into creating the technical foundations of the network. Right now, the next stage is about connecting those foundations with users, developers, businesses, and applications that can create lasting activity. I personally believe that this is one of the hardest challenges in blockchain because strong technology does not automatically result in adoption. As Nexa enters its fifth year, what is the most important challenge that must now be solved to turn those technical capabilities into sustained usage, stronger ecosystem activity, and products that reach people beyond the existing community that we have right now?
I think that we're moving quickly to delivering apps. Like the whole uh, Bitcoin Unlimited is transforming from being focused on the full node to focused on delivering fun and interesting applications that use Nexa. And these are to some degree wild shot in the dark stuff, right? Which at their absolute minimum is simply a demonstration of capability, and at their maximum might actually be a successful, cool, and fun like game or application or Dex or whatever it happens to be on its own, right? We don't know. I think it's a testament to the strength of our developers that we were able to pivot and start working on a different area of the ecosystem. But also, it does explain to some degree why Tailstorm is delayed. It's honestly just not our highest priority right now. Uh, Creating applications and creating this AI, uh, architecture so that other people can create applications. We have more developers working on that than on the full node.
That's really great to hear. Does anybody else wants to add something?
Sure, I'll add a little something. Yeah, so like we spoke about in the previous segment with the AI stuff, and building on what Andrew just spoke of, uh, attracting ecosystem developers seems to be kind of like one of the high priorities. And again, we have when I first started with when I was first introduced to the BU team a few years ago, as Andrew said, the focus was on wallet, was on infrastructure, full node, and now we have UI people, we have applications developers, and a lot of uh, a lot of what we're working on is to make building applications on Next accessible to everybody. And so this is where we can kind of turn to the community and say, hey, help us build some of these features that are going to attract and retain users. So that's all I got.
Yeah, but we're doing that by building our own applications as well. And I think that's important because I've seen a couple of failure modes in cryptocurrencies. First one is they create these SDKs and just wait for people to build apps on top, and people don't, right? And then the other failure mode is they fork off a small group or maybe pay them, a lot of money, and they build an app, and the app, is really top heavy in terms of personnel. And then the app is done, and they just sit there and wait, right? And all the money runs out. So because blockchain adoption takes time, so we're not doing it in either of those ways, right? We're building the tools that we need in a way that other people can use that allows us to build our own applications. And then when those applications are done, our developers are going to move on to the next idea, not sit there and wait for adoption to happen in the original one. It'll just be part of the Nexa ecosystem. And then eventually, the hope is that we'll pull in perhaps a small quantity of users and all these different apps. Maybe one goes viral, so it gets a lot of users. You never know. But then all these other apps will be there, available, ready to go. Similar to how not much work is being done on Nifty Art at this time, but there it is, right? It's ready to go.
Yeah, I really believe that there are a lot of segments and uh, applications being worked on right now, and I think the future is going to look very bright for Nexa and everybody who is interested in what we're doing. So I want to move on to the next and final chapter of this evening. So we have spent time looking back at Nexa's first 4 years, discussing the lessons learned and exploring some of the major developments currently underway. Now I want to build those pieces together. When you look at those pieces, all those pieces together, what excites you most about the next chapter? And what kind of year could fundamentally change how people understand Nexa?
I'm excited because we're actually doing what I originally came here to do, like in Bitcoin, right? I didn't join Bitcoin to do full node consensus development. I joined with ideas about um, how you could, easily make money from another app and use Bitcoin. I think I'll tell a story from way back in the day that I've told a few times before, but these things get lost in time. Is one of the things that attracted me to Bitcoin was I was getting some remote controls done in China, and just as a to summarize this really quickly, it was going to take more time. It took more time to move the money to the remote control prototyping factory in China than it did for them to produce the remote control and overnight it, back to my house on the other side of the world. So for some reason, an electronic transfer took more time than it took them to actually produce and ship a physical product. And so I came into crypto with the intention to use it, and I'm super excited that we're at the point here where we're actually starting to build out uses, real uses.
We are definitely doing that. Does anybody else wants to reflect on this question? Okay, I have one more. By the time we celebrate Nexa's 5th anniversary, what would you like the wider blockchain industry to understand about Nexa that it may not understand today?
It's a tough question.
I'm not even focused on the wider blockchain community. I don't even care what they know about us, but what I want is in some random community, I don't know, trading Matchbox cars or something, right? People to be like, oh yeah, you should install, this Nexa wallet so you can easily trade Matchbox cars because, you get an NFT for each Matchbox car, and once the NFT is transferred, then the Matchbox car just appears in the mail a few days later, right? So that's what I'm interested in, is some community says, well, this is the thing that you just use to make it happen,
Yeah, I believe so. Does anybody else wants to say something on this topic? So I think that right now it's a good place to wrap up. First, I really want to thank everybody from the team for joining us, sharing your personal experiences, and helping explain not only what Nexa is building, but also the thinking, lessons, and long-term vision behind that work. I also want to thank everybody who joined to listen, share the space, and celebrate this anniversary for us. 4 years is a major milestone. During those 4 years, Nexa has moved from an ambitious idea and a small group of contributors into a battle-tested network supported by a growing team, a committed community, an expanding collection of tools, and increasingly visible applications. We have reached our first halving, continuing improving the base layer, explored new approaches to mining and transaction security, prepared for long-term challenges such as quantum computing, and started turning Nexus technology into products people can actually experience. But today's conversations also made something very clear. Nexa's 4th anniversary is not the conclusion of the story, it is the beginning of another chapter. Tailstorm, Nexa AI, developer tools, mining decentralization applications, and the many developments happening across the ecosystem represent a transitions from building foundations towards showing what those foundations can support. There are still major challenges ahead, but there are also opportunities that did not exist when Nexa launched 4 years ago. Before we finish, I also want to remind everybody about the special edition NFT. Everybody listening to this anniversary space can receive the NFT by posting a valid Nexa address in a comment below the space. Today, we celebrate everything that has already been achieved, recognize the people who helped make it possible, and continue working to what comes next. So happy 4th anniversary to Nexa. Once again, thank you to the team, thank you to the community, and thank you to everyone who has been part of the journey. And that would be all for today's space.